Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 32nd chapter of Inheritance written by A is for Amy 71 on AO3. Villains don't leave Izuku alone. He won the sports festival and he still doesn't get left alone. All we can hope is that the recovery from this goes smoothly. Let's find out, but first, the trigger warnings. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for major character death. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game and indulges the what-ifs of Midoriya Izuku having a quirk. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. What comes after getting kidnapped? Recovery and a long talk. Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 32. Izuku woke up warm, comfortable, and really needing the bathroom. He opened his eyes to see that he was in his own bed, in his own room, with no recollection of ever being moved there. He threw back his blankets to find he was clad only in his boxer shorts. He slid his feet into slippers and shuffled down the hall to the toilet, then realized as he was washing his hands that his arm was working properly. His elbow felt stiff and a bit weak, and there was a neoprene-like brace on it that had slid down his arm in his sleep to reveal bright pink skin where his arm had been destroyed by Tomura. Izuku tugged the brace all the way down to examine the damage in the mirror. It actually wasn't as bad as he imagined it would be. The pink area was centered on his upper arm, extending almost to his shoulder and down just under his elbow, and wrapped all the way around his arm. But obviously hadn't penetrated all the way through, or he'd be looking at a stump instead of a scar. Maybe being punched in the face had made Shigaraki loosen at least one of his fingers to stop the progression of the deterioration. "Zoo, are you awake?" his dad called from the direction of the living room. "Almost," Izuku called back. "Need to get dressed." "Feeling okay?" his dad allied back. "Pretty good," Izuku called. "Hungry?" He shuffled into his room and slipped on sweatpants and a t-shirt before emerging again. He found his dad in the kitchen attempting to cook something. The rice cooker was open and there was a bowl of warm rice next to it waiting. "It's not much," his dad said when he heard Izuku come into the room, "but I can at least get you some vegetables and rice." "Thanks, Dad," Izuku smiled fondly. What his father knew about cooking could fill about half a page, even with all the times Izuku and Granny Ito had tried to coach him. His mind was always somewhere else, and he ended up burning whatever he tried to make. The fact that he was even trying was a testament to how worried he had been. Izuku kept a careful eye on the vegetables in the pot, which were probably just about done, and fetching an egg from the refrigerator. He cracked the egg over his rice and stirred it in, then sprinkled some furikake on it for extra flavor. His dad successfully tipped the vegetables into the bowl and brought it to the table for his son, and sat across from him while Izuku dug in. "Sir was able to track your phone, but it didn't lead to a bar. It had been smashed and tossed in a dumpster." Izuku scowled. He'd like that phone. "He salvaged the chip or whatever from it, and he said he would have a replacement for you by this evening." Izuku nodded and managed a thank you around a mouthful of rice. "There is some good news," his father said. "They are able to tell where your phone had been and they found the general area you were taken to. They did find the bar, but by the time they got there, it had been recently abandoned. There was a cellar there that looked like it'd been a storage room that was converted into some sort of hospital room. There were some things left behind that suggested it anyway. It's possible that All for One had been there and that he was in bad shape. It would explain why he seemed so desperate to get you out of there. You might have been inadvertently draining him just by being in the same building. Then why would Shigaraki take me there? Is he trying to kill All for One? Izuku asked, puzzled. Who knows? From what you told us Saturday, he doesn't exactly sound well-adjusted and sane, does he? Wait, Saturday? What day is it now? Izuku asked, casting his eyes around for a clue to what the date was. It's Monday, his dad said with a shrug. Recovery girl said you might sleep for a couple days since your arm was so damaged. She fixed you enough to get everything under control, then let you rest for a while. Then she had to do a little surgery, nothing extreme. It was just to make sure the bones and muscles were reconstructing themselves properly. Then she healed you again to speed up the recovery for that. The sleep was just your body recharging after being sped up to heal so quickly. Well, I feel good now. What time is it? I could still make it to school. Not today. After what happened, the school counseled for today, to put more security measures in place. Izuku sighed and sat back in his chair. That can't be good. I mean, first villains attack the USJ, then they manage to get into the school, sort of, during the sports festival. That could have been a disaster. What if they'd wanted to plan bombs or something like that? All of those people. So many of them important heroes. Believe me, you're not the only one worried about that. The press has been having a field day with it. Izuku's heart sank. He hated knowing that the trouble that followed him everywhere he went was tarnishing the reputation of the school. It wasn't really their fault that one of the most evil villains to ever live was interested in him, and now they were facing a whole load of trouble for it. He wished he had his phone so he could check the headlines immediately. His classmates were probably freaking out too. Would the school see him as too big of a liability and ask him to withdraw? Is there anything else I need to know? He asked, thoughts spiraling in all directions. I should probably check in with my class and Sir and All Might too. Also, was there any sign of Nomu there with All for One? I've been in touch with Sir and All Might, his dad said. They've been checking in regularly to see how you're doing. But they're also busy trying to follow any tiny little clue about that bar you were taken to, and where they might have gone. No sign of Nomu that anyone told me about. Izuku nodded. I hope they find something good. Me too, his dad agreed. You go ahead and contact your classmates. I've got work to keep me busy. He pointed to his folded laptop and a briefcase on one of the kitchen chairs. Izuku retreated to his room, flexing his arm up and down as he attempted to ease some of the stiffness in his elbow. The brace he'd slid back on kept making a slow descent towards his wrist, and he wondered if the support people who had designed his costume could figure out a way to make something that could stick to him. Otherwise, he'd have to rig up some sort of over-the-shoulder strap to hold it up. He opened his laptop and logged into the group chat, which blew up the second his username popped up. Midoriya, at Freckles, has joined the Class 1A chat. Uraraka at 0_Gs. Midoriya! Sero at Stickman. Midoriya! Ashido at Acid Trip. Midoriya! Tokoyami at darkness_x_2. Midoriya. Mineta at Sticky Balls. Midoriya. Aoyama at Sparkles. Monami. Kaminari at Zip_Zap. Dude. Kirishima at Rock Solid. What the heck, man?
Hagakure at behind_you. Midoriya! Midoriya at Freckles.
Who changed my name to Freckles?
Uraraka at 0_Gs. Never mind that, what happened to you? Midoriya at Freckles.
Lots of stuff. Got snatched by a villain. I'm fine now.
Uraraka at 0_Gs. Midoriya! Sero at Stickman.
Midoriya.
Ashido at Acid Trip. Midoriya! Tokoyami at darkness_x_2.
Midoriya.
Mineta at Sticky Balls.
What?
Aoyama at Sparkles. Don't joke! Kaminari at zip_zap.
WTF?
Hagakure at behind_you. Spill it, broccoli boy! Ashido at Acid Trip has changed Midoriya at Freckles to Midoriya at broccoli_boy. Midoriya at broccoli_boy.
Seriously?
Ashido at Acid Trip. Seriously, now Dish, what happened? 1 second you had won the sports fest, the next you were gone. They set up the winner pedestals and you didn't come out and everyone freaked. Midoriya at broccoli_boy.
Long story short, the villains from the USJ opened a warp gate in the waiting room and pulled me in. The white hair guy didn't plan it too well, and when things started to turn out bad, they sent me back.
Kaminari at zip_zap.
Started to go bad how?
Mineta at Sticky Balls.
Did you kick their butts?
Midoriya at broccoli_boy.
Kind of. Something weird happened. And there was an explosion or something? Not sure, but they freaked and let me go in case I did it again. Now that he thought of it, Izuku had no idea what had caused the explosion that had blown Kurogiri and Shigaraki back and wrecked the bar. It was like his emotions had just blown up out of him in a shockwave or something. He would have to talk to his dad about it. He chatted with his classmates for a while longer, being as vague as possible with explanations about what happened to him. He asked about Ida, but no one had been able to reach him. That was unlike him, and Izuku quickly did an internet search, and didn't find any news about the Ida family. Whatever had happened hadn't made the news. Or hadn't made the news yet. He felt uneasy about it and wondered if All Might or Sir might have any insider info they could share. He heard the door buzzer sound and hopped up to see who it was, so his father could keep working, but his dad beat him to it. Sir's face was displayed on the screen and his dad pressed the button to let him come up to the apartment. "Everything all right with your friends?" his dad asked as they waited for their guest. "I guess," Izuku shrugged. "They changed my name to Freckles in the chat and then to Broccoli Boy. It's what I get for letting Ashido be in charge of setting it up. As an admin, she can do what she wants, I guess." His dad laughed at that, and it was a good sound to hear. It seemed like a long time since either of them had really laughed. "You do kind of need a haircut," his dad said ruefully, ruffling his son's hair. "You haven't had the chance to go out and do normal things like that in way too long." "Maybe there's someone at school who can do it," Izuku pondered. "Ashido seems like the type who likes to do makeovers and stuff. If they screw it up, I can always cut it really short. My hair grows fast." In fact, now that he thought of it, it was so long that he could probably grab a handful of hair and put it into a stubby ponytail, if a rubber band would hold it. "You're a braver man than me," his dad joked. There was a light knock on the door at that point, and Izuku opened the door and welcomed Sir and All Might into the apartment. Niceties were quickly disposed of as they all moved to the living room to sit down. "How are you feeling, my boy?" All Might asked Izuku as he settled into an armchair. "Practically as good as new," Izuku assured him. "My arm's a bit stiff, and I'll probably need to work the muscles back up again, but it could have been worse." All Might looked pained at the last part, but nodded. "I'm sorry this happened." "You didn't do anything wrong," Izuku said with a shrug. "I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted what happened." It was Sir's turn to look pained. He coughed into his hand to clear his throat. "I didn't mean..." Izuku felt horrified by his own insensitivity. "It's fine," Sir said. "I understand. The truth is, I considered looking into All Might's future for the festival, just to make sure nothing would go amiss, but I felt like it would be a sort of cheating if I actually saw the results. The security was increased to 5 times its normal level, and I personally looked over the plans to ensure your safety." "So there was no reason for you to expect danger," Izuku responded. "I mean, who'd be crazy enough to stage an attack at an event full of pro heroes, right?" "I won't be making that mistake again," Sir said firmly. "I'll be using foresight to check any large events you're involved with. That goes for planned field trips too. I won't try to interfere if I look in the future and see you're fine, but if you aren't, I don't care about my quirk's track record. We'll move heaven and earth to change the cards to favor us." Izuku didn't put up an argument. It was hard hearing that there would be even more restrictions put on him, but he understood why it was necessary. He was also incredibly touched that Sir and All Might were willing to fight fate itself for his sake. "I think our main focus should be in finding and incarcerating Kurogiri," All Might said, looking grim. "If we have him in custody, we'll take away All for One's key mode of transportation and sneaking around. Once he's taken out of the equation, young Midoriya could have a semi-normal life without worrying about being taken at any given moment." "Agreed," Sir said. "Until he's caught," his dad added. "You don't go anywhere alone when you're away from home. Always take someone with you. An adult. Also, always carry this," Sir added, taking a new phone from his pocket. It was the newest model of his previous phone, and it looked far more sturdy than Izuku's last phone. "It has an improved tracker in it, and it has a military-grade case, waterproof, shock-resistant, and will stand to intense heat or cold." Izuku took the phone and noted that it was definitely heavier and bulkier than his last phone, but not unmanageable. "I've already had your information transferred from the remains of your old phone as much as possible, so you shouldn't have too much trouble making the switch," Sir said. "I won't spy on you with it, but it is one of the best tools for us to use to find you, if something happens again. The old one could only give us a general area. This tracker has much better accuracy. I don't think All for One will dare try to take you again. But there's no telling what Shigaraki will do." Izuku had learned that firsthand. "Any questions?" "Only about a dozen," Izuku said dryly. "Such as?" Sir asked patiently. "What about the Nomu? Was there any sign of any more at the bar or hideout or whatever it was? Do you think they have more of them? What even are they? If they have more, where are they keeping them?" "Ah, well, in all of the commotion, I see we failed to tell you what we've learned about the Nomu," Sir said. All Might seemed to shift uncomfortably in his seat, making Izuku feel uneasy as well. "From the examination of the remains of the Nomu from the USJ, we learned some disturbing truths," Sir told them, adjusting his glasses before continuing. It seems like it is something like a version of Frankenstein's monster. Izuku tried to think of what he knew of that story and shuddered. Dr. Frankenstein used pieces of corpses to build it. Precisely. It seems that, on the whole, it was once a man who was experimented on, either before or after his death, and had the DNA of 4 different people inside of one host. They're unsure if the Nomu developed quirks as the result of the experimentation, but it is more likely that All for One stripped them of their quirks before the Doctor began his genetic manipulation, then reintroduced the quirks he believed would aid them in their cause. It was an artificially created life form that was essentially brain-dead unless given a direct order from the person in command of them. It had no autonomy, no emotion, and no idea of any difference between right and wrong. A Nomu, literally translated, is no brain. Izuku felt sick at the thought of anyone being experimented on in that way. He was only slightly comforted by the fact that it apparently had no sense of self, and that whatever had made it what it was absent. He'd basically killed it after all. Did it make him a bad person if he saw it as a mercy to it? That it was now completely dead? Everyone in the room seemed to be staring at Izuku, gauging his reaction to this information. "I'm not sure what to think about all of that," he admitted. "I have a lot of conflicting feelings about it. What? How? Why?" "As long as none of those feelings are guilt," All Might told him, "we're probably on the same page, even if, as Shigaraki implied, they used you in some way to achieve its creation. You are in no way at fault." Izuku nodded slowly. He understood that, he did. It was just hard to accept. Those whose DNA we identified were all criminals of one kind or another. Likely lured in by All for One with promises of strength or wealth or other kinds of power. There's no way to be sure they weren't willing participants in the project. It's horrifying, no matter how you look at it, but just reinforces how imperative it is that All for One and his followers be stopped. Izuku noticed that his father had tiny tendrils of smoke beginning to form from his nostrils and sighed. This was so hard on him, and he tried so hard to be supportive all the time. "What about the school?" Izuku asked in an attempt to shift the subject and calm his father. "My dad says they're taking a beating by the press." "That's to be expected," All Might said with a sigh. "It's what the press does. Let those in charge of that handle the public relations and put their spin on it. You'll likely be in the spotlight because it's obvious that you were the one who was taken. We'll do our best to keep you from having to face anyone from the press directly." "Are you sure the school doesn't want to cut its losses and kick me out?" Izuku asked, holding his breath and turning transparent as he waited for the answer. All 3 men looked shocked at the very idea. Izuku released the breath in relief. "Absolutely not. The fact the villains are so afraid of you shows us that we're on the right track in training you to be a hero," All Might said firmly. "It's their duty to see you safely through, not to throw you to the wolves at every sign of trouble." Izuku nodded again, knowing he'd been thinking about it for a long time. "Are there any other questions you need answered before we move on?" Sir asked. "Oh, yes. Did they finish the last event of the sports festival, or did I ruin everything?" Izuku asked as an afterthought. He was amazed none of his friends had brought it up. They all stared at him for a moment before nodding. "We didn't discover you were gone until it was time to award the medals," All Might said. "Yorashi won 2nd place, and Bakugo won 3rd. "3rd? There was no way Kachan took that well, and Todoroki didn't place in the top 3? That wasn't good." especially after he'd made a big show confronting Izuku about beating him with his superior strength. So, do you think that means Ka-chan'll get to come back to the hero course? Izuku asked. That will be up to Aizawa and Principal Nezu, All Might said. I think they'll judge his overall performance and attitude since he was sent to general studies, and make an assessment based on that. What about Shinso? He said that he was aiming for a spot in the hero course, and that those who didn't perform well in the sports festival could be moved out to make room for general studies students who excelled there. I'm not sure of the rules on that, Sir said, but he is certainly an interesting young man. His quirk is very subtle, and could be an incredible asset in hero work. I never did find out what his quirk is, Izuku said with interest. From my observation, it seems to be some sort of mind control, Sir said with a small smile. I'll be looking into it to find out more. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. Izuku got some comfort, but where did Ida go off to? I think I know. Will Bakugo be allowed back into the hero course? Will there be an icy hot argument when Izuku returns to school? We'll find out next time. Hopefully. Maybe. Who knows? All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction. A is for Amy71 on AO3. I'd highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah.